Okay, so hello everybody, and I know that you're all here tonight because I used the F word. Okay, I know, there is no word that conjures up more anxiety for entrepreneurs than the word failure. Every day we are just inundated by marketing messages from people who want to share their 10-step plan for success. Or ads promoting their proven roadmap for building 6 or 7-figure businesses. Everywhere we look, people are telling us about their successes. And many are quick to promise that they're going to teach us how to do it too. But you know what? The math just doesn't add up. If there's a proven framework for success, why do 80% of businesses fail in the first year? And even scarier, 93% of businesses fail in the first 10 years. What happens to the companies that fail? Why don't we hear their stories? Well, usually they just disappear. The founders lick their wounds, they cry it out, and eventually they move on. Maybe they go back to the 9-to-5 grind, or they take some time off to recharge before jumping to their next venture. But some, just some, fail their way into becoming billion-dollar companies. Did you know that Instagram started as a check-in app called Bourbon, and Twitter started a podcasting app called Audio? How did these companies do it? How did companies like Pinterest, Avon, and PayPal fail their way into the record books? The answer is they failed smart, and they inspired a whole new business building methodology that companies like Facebook and Airbnb have used to balloon their profits, dethrone their competitors, and inspire millions of tech companies to follow their lead. Fail fast has become a dogmatic cry in the tech world. But the tactics that these companies use to fail aren't always highly technical. You can actually use them too, and I'm going to show you how. In the upcoming webinar, here's what we're going to talk about. You're going to learn more about me, how I got started, and how I got to where I am now. Winning fancy awards and being named an influencer by Forbes. And you're going to learn why the heck I'm qualified to talk to you about this. Spoiler alert, I failed a bunch to get to where we are now, and we're in a really good place. You'll learn about customer development and why it should be baked into your business model. And I'll talk about experimentation and how you can experiment your way to product market fit, meaning that people actually want what it is you're selling and they're going to buy it again and again. And in each section, I'll break complex methodologies into easy to understand ideas. I'll give real life examples of companies that have used these tactics to grow fast, and I'll share how I did it. And more importantly, the mistakes that we've made so that you can avoid making them yourself. Lastly, I'll reveal the #1 reason that companies fail that nobody is talking about, and I'm going to show you how to beat the odds. So my goal is to keep this webinar short. I'm a big believer that people learn best from engaging in conversations versus just consuming content and being broadcasted to. So I want to make sure that we have lots of time at the end for Q&As. And for those of you who do stick around to the end, you'll get a free workbook to help you start failing fast and failing forward and using this philosophy in your own business. Okay, so let's dive in. So who am I and why should you listen to me? As an authority on failing fast. I'm Caitlin Burgoyne, and I'm probably best known as the founder of Vendiv. Vendiv is a business network for women entrepreneurs. We've been called the LinkedIn for women by my pals at Forbes and Inc. And I'm sure I could just start by telling you all about my career highlights. I could talk about how I took Vendiv from an idea in my notebook to a venture-backed tech company worth multiple 7 figures. And I could share how I hustled into being named as an influencer by Forbes. But I'm not going to spend the next 10 minutes talking about me or selling you on Vendiv. I've seen a lot of webinars, and I know how they usually start. The presenter spends more than half the time talking about all their big wins in an effort to pitch their product. But I've never really liked that approach. For one, it's icky. And to steal Trump's word, it's pretty braggadocious. And more importantly, it's usually only part of their story. People are so quick to share their wins, but behind every win, there's a hell of a lot of stuff that didn't work. There are miscalculations, mistakes, oh crap moments. In this webinar, we're talking about failing fast, not fluff. So instead of sharing my wins, I'll quickly share my backstory so you can see how far we've come using the fail fast method. And then we'll jump right into the good stuff, how you can use the fail fast philosophy to propel your business. Okay, so I've been an entrepreneur for over 6 years now. In fact, aside from serving tables as a waitress and a few odd jobs, being an entrepreneur is pretty much the only title I've ever had. But the funny thing is, I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I kind of thought of myself as an artist. I love theater, writing, and design. And like a lot of artists, I thought that business was boring. Instead of studying business in university, I got an English degree, which cost me $40,000 in student loan debt, and it gave me exactly 0 jobs. A few years later, I went back to school and got a PR degree, and that's when I fell in love with branding and marketing. I graduated from PR school and I started my first business, a freelance marketing company named Red Riot. I still love that name. Now, here's the thing. I could tell you that I'd always dreamed of being an entrepreneur and that that's why I started my first business, but that is not the truth. The truth is that I started Red Riot because even though I was so lucky and I actually got my dream job after graduating, I still couldn't afford to pay my rent and my student loans on my entry-level salary. If I wanted to eat, going freelance was the only option. So I ran Red Riot for 4 years, eventually growing it into a full-service marketing agency. I built an awesome team and we got to work with clients like Target and the Holiday Inn. But as much as I love branding and marketing, I hated the feast and famine lifestyle that came along with running a service company. I wanted to sell something other than my time. So I started looking at my options. In business, they say you should always scratch your own itch. And that's what I did. I remembered how hard it had been for me to build my business as a solo founder. Going it alone is tough. In the beginning, I didn't have money to hire experts to help me with things like designing my website or doing my bookkeeping. So I taught myself how to DIY, and I was resourceful. If there was something I couldn't figure out how to do, I'd look for other entrepreneurs who could do it, and I'd suggest that we swap services. It was a win-win. I'd save money on services I needed, and I'd get awesome work that I could add to my portfolio. And this is where the idea for my first startup came to life. I knew that lots of millennials like me were struggling. They were drowning in student loan debt and desperately hunting for jobs. It was no wonder that 50% of recent grads said that they were going to start their own business. But I also knew firsthand how hard it was to get started. Lots of entrepreneurs needed services to grow their business, things like graphic design and copywriting, but they couldn't afford to hire professionals. Enter Swapskis, also known as my first failure and the one that hurt the most. My original idea for Swapskis was to build a marketplace where entrepreneurs could find other local entrepreneurs to swap skills with. I knew that the app should be free to use like Fiverr or eBay, but since skill swapping was free, I couldn't just charge a transaction fee and make money. But I had a plan for that too. It was simple. We'd help you find experts to swap skills with, but we'd also be a resource hub where you could buy online courses that taught you how to DIY. So for example, if you couldn't find a copywriter or a designer to swap with, you could buy an online course and learn how to do it yourself at a fraction of the cost. It was 2013 at the time. Online training experts like Marie Forleo and Derek Halpern were still kind of new, but I knew that this market was going to explode in coming years, and I was excited to create the go-to marketplace to source all of this DIY content. The idea made sense, but I had no flipping clue how to get started. I wasn't technical. I'd never built an app before. Luckily for me, I got introduced to the Lean Startup methodology and began studying it like crazy. Unluckily for me, I wasn't the best student the first time around. And that's good news for you because you can learn from some of my mistakes. So let's explore what I mean by a lean startup. Whoop. Okay, so a lean startup, the textbook definition says that a lean startup is a methodology for faster, more targeted products, services, and business development. So that sounds good, right? Who wouldn't want to build their products or services faster? Who wouldn't want to be more targeted in their marketing? Pretty obvious, right? Except for most businesses don't do it this way. Until a few years ago, every business school in the country was teaching entrepreneurs to do it the traditional way. You have an idea, you do your market research, and you write a 40-page business plan. You get funding to build your product. You start working on it behind closed doors. It's okay if you spend 12, 24 months working on it. Then you launch it. You release it to the world, and you wait for people to buy it. And then you cry if they don't. A lot of smart, hardworking entrepreneurs lost a lot of money doing it the traditional way. But then a few companies changed the game. Some of the most famous examples of companies built using the lean startup process are companies like Dropbox and Zappos. Now, I had a chance to hang out with Tony Hsieh, the founder from Zappos, a while back. And you only need to spend a few minutes talking to Tony to realize that he is a visionary entrepreneur. So what did Tony do that led to Zappos getting acquired by Amazon for $1.2 billion just 10 years? Well, he started Lean. So starting Lean is a simple process, and it's one that any entrepreneur can and should follow. First, you start with your idea. Next, you develop a hypothesis, which you try to validate or disprove as quickly and as cheaply as possible. You build an MVP. This is what's called a minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is pretty much what it sounds like. It's minimal. It's the cheapest and fastest product you can design to validate your hypothesis. No fancy branding, no signing leases on commercial spaces to start the business, no writing code. Keep it as bare bones as possible. Next, you conduct a series of experiments designed to test your hypothesis. With each new experiment, you learn something new. You tweak your MVP, adjust your hypothesis, and decide whether you should keep working on your idea, pivot, meaning you change gears and try something new. I love this description of an MVP. It really shows how it works. Now, this is how you build a lean startup, rapid iteration. And this process works. Just ask Tony Hsieh. For Tony, his hypothesis was that people would buy shoes over the internet. But at the time, in 1999, people thought he was crazy. He sought out to prove them wrong, and he built a quick and dirty prototype and ran a series of experiments to prove that people would, in fact, buy shoes online. Each experiment built on the last one, and bit by bit, Tony and his team built one of the fastest growing e-commerce platforms in history. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't quite so lucky yet. My idea was an online skill swapping marketplace for entrepreneurs, and my hypothesis was simple. I believed that people were already swapping skills, and I believed that they wanted a way to do it easier. At first, I did what my business friends told me to do. I bought a domain name, I put together a 40-page business plan, and eventually I started interviewing app design studios to build the product. But I was lucky. Before I went too far down the wrong path, I got accepted into a starting lean training program at a local university. They told me to put down my credit card and pick up my pen. My first assignment was filling in my lean canvas business model plan. This is a one-page business plan that you use to get your idea and your hypothesis on paper so you can start testing it. And you update this plan as your tests go along and you learn new things. Now, the example that I'm showing you here is Swapskis, and yours is going to look different. We've put together a fail fast workbook for you, as I said, and you can get a copy of the Lean Canvas to complete yourself and a done for you example at the end of the webinar. Okay, so one of the quickest and cheapest ways to validate a business idea is also one of the ones that so many people skip. A great way to prove your hypothesis is to call potential customers and ask them questions to better understand their needs. I called every entrepreneur I knew, and then when I didn't have any more to call, I got on the phone book and I started calling others. In the end, I interviewed 300 entrepreneurs and a pattern emerged. I learned that women were 70% more likely to want to swap skills than men. In fact, a lot of women entrepreneurs were already swapping skills and they were looking for a better solution. And with a little more research, I discovered that women were starting businesses at the fastest rate in history. And that was my first pivot. A pivot is when you change your business model or strategy based on key learnings. And my pivot was clear. Rather than trying to appeal to all entrepreneurs, Swapskis would focus on women only. I had validation that women wanted to swap skills, and my next step was building an MVP, or a minimum viable product. For the first MVP, I set up a skill swapping booth at an entrepreneurial networking event because I wanted to see if people would actually swap skills when given the chance. The experiment wasn't a huge success. There wasn't a lot of action at the booth, but it was also tucked away in a corner. So I assumed that that was the problem, and I planned my next experiment. Next, I developed a simple coming soon landing page, and I shared it with my network to start building an email list. I had 100 people sign up in the first week, so I assumed that I was on the right track. So my next step in hindsight was a mistake. Rather than looking for another cheap and easy way to test skill swapping, like starting a Facebook group or something like that, I hired a web design firm to design the user interface of the app. As you can see, they did great work, but having a beautiful mock-up didn't mean anything. It didn't prove that people actually wanted what I was building. But it did help me explain my vision, which got me invited to join Volta, a startup host in Halifax. And moving into Volta was, without a doubt, the best decision I ever made. Suddenly, I was surrounded by other startup founders who were doing the same thing I was, and I learned more in 10 minutes of talking to them than I had in hours and hours of doing my own research. These people became my advisors and friends, and I know that I would have never made it this far without them. When I joined Volta, I had already secured a technical co-founder. He was wickedly talented and an awesome guy, but he was also insanely busy, and he was trying to balance family life and his day job. And after 3 months of really slow progress, we decided to part ways. Now, I was one of the only founders at Volta who didn't have a technical co-founder. I was surrounded by all of these brilliant startup people, and I felt like a total imposter. Who was I to build an app? Why should they take me seriously? So instead of continuing to experiment with my concept and building a true MVP, like customizing the existing template or building a WordPress site, I just hired a developer and started building a custom app. And when he was moving too slow, I hired a second developer. This is a mistake that I see so many entrepreneurs make. They think that to be taken seriously, they need to invest in a polished website or a professional photo shoot. You can have the most beautiful website in the world, but if nobody wants your product, you're still going to be in trouble. So the next 3 months were a blur. I started investing a lot of my own money in the business, which meant that I had to work even harder in my marketing company to fund it. And I was burning out. Working 80 hours a week was not sustainable. But rather than trying to find a cheaper way to build my first real product, I decided that the only option was to raise money from investors. And after a series of disappointing meetings with investors, I made a critical mistake. The investors I was talking to didn't get the business. They understood the skill swapping part, but they didn't know about the world of online courses, and I did a terrible job of explaining it. Instead, I spent most of my time trying to convince investors that women wanted to swap skills, rather than talking about the massive emerging e-learning market and how we would leverage it to make money. And every time I pitched, I would get told what an amazing presenter I was, and then get asked how I was going to find women to invest in the business. It was discouraging. I began to think that it was hopeless. And rather than looking for investors who got it, I decided it was time to change the product. That was the next pivot. Swapskis went from being a skill swapping marketplace that sold DIY training to a marketplace where you could buy, sell, and swap skills, and we would charge a transaction fee. We'd gone from competing against other bartering sites where there were no big players yet to competing against established freelancer marketplaces like Fiverr and Upwork. And that was the beginning of the end for Swapskis. But more on that coming up. Okay, so let's recap this section before we dive into the customer development section. Starting lean is a methodology for rapid product development. To do it right, you need to start with an idea and then form a hypothesis that you can test. You need to complete your business model canvas and then find creative ways to test your hypothesis as quickly and as cheaply as possible. Start with an MVP and iterate it rapidly, making it better and better with each new version. And I'm going to show you more of a step-by-step of how we did that in the section on experimentation. Things you should not do. Do not spend a lot of time and money investing in an idea until it's proven. You shouldn't change your product based on feedback from people who aren't your core customer. Listen to their insights and advice, of course, but at the end of the day, talk to your ideal customer and run more experiments. And you shouldn't ignore market conditions. You might have a great idea, but are you in the right market for it to work? For example, people might love your cupcakes, but if you're planning to open a shop in a gluten-free area of town, it's going to be hard. For me, I was trying to build a startup that required a lot of venture capital to be successful in Nova Scotia, where there was very little venture capital. And I was a female founder building a consumer product without a technical co-founder. So it was going to be an uphill battle. Had I slowed down and done more research, I would have changed my strategy. But I was blinded by excitement and passion. So I kept pushing forward. And that's a great segue into our next section on customer development. So customer development is a process that should be baked into your business on every level. It's really simple in theory. Talk to your customers early and often. But there are specific methods that you want to follow to do this right, like Airbnb did. Today, Airbnb is the largest accommodation rental platform on the planet. But without customer discovery, Airbnb might just be another failed Silicon Valley startup. So the original idea for Airbnb was that you could rent an air mattress on the floor in someone's apartment and that the hosts would serve you breakfast, hence air, bed, and breakfast. They followed the lean startup process and they quickly built a quick and dirty MVP, but things weren't going well. After getting rejected by over 25 VCs in 2 years and having to bootstrap their company using funds from selling cereal, Airbnb started surveying their customers. They learned that the #1 reason people weren't booking with them was because the photos of the apartments made the apartments look crappy. So the founders decided that they would literally drive to every single listing and take professional photos. Their hypothesis was that better photos would increase rentals. But what they didn't realize was that the time that they would spend talking to their customers was going to be amazing. They got to meet with literally hundreds of customers firsthand and learn about their experience. In a few weeks, they learned more than what they needed to do with their business than they had in the first 2 years. In the following years, they would go from making just $400 a week to becoming a $20 billion business. So yeah, talking to your customers to refine your product is important. And it's so important. Why don't more businesses do it? Well, they don't do it because they think that they know what their customers want, like I did. Okay, so back to our story. We did eventually launch Swapskis to huge acclaim. We made the national news twice. We had thousands of users join the network. We rebranded and we became Vendeeb, the world's first service marketplace for women entrepreneurs. Things were going great. As a marketplace, we were actually growing faster than Etsy and Fiverr had when they had first started. And that helped us lead our lead investor. Hooray! By this point, I brought on a co-founder and we were off to the races. But from the outside, everything looked good. We were getting lots of media attention. We built a terrific team, but not everything was going to plan. We were not growing fast enough. We needed to grow much faster for our business model to work. And the money that we raised from investors was running out. We didn't know what to do. We kept tweaking the product and adding new features, hoping that some new feature would solve the problem, but it didn't. We had what's known in tech as a leaky bucket problem. We could get new users into the app, but we couldn't get them to keep using it. They were posting services, but they weren't staying active or hiring each other. And when your business has a leaky bucket problem, adding more customers won't fix the problem. What you need to do is fix the leak. And to do that, you need to talk to your customers. Now, I knew that customer development was important, but I also didn't think we had time to do it, which in hindsight was so dumb. But at the time, our whole team was working 12 hours a day trying to improve retention and close our seed round of investment. So I brought in a pro to help. My pal Ashley Green is the founder of Instratify, and she's a growth guru. Ashley uses a proven step-by-step process for conducting customer discovery interviews. She knows how to ask the right questions that really get to the heart of the problem. In the startup world, there are some very specific ways to do customer development, and we're going to let you swipe our process, but you're going to have to wait until the end because I've got a special bonus for you. Okay, so after a few weeks of talking to our customers, Ashley presented her report. What she'd learned was that women had joined Vendeeb because they wanted to get more customers for their business, but they were hesitant to hire other women on the network without getting to know them first. Hearing this was like getting hit by a Mack truck. Our whole product had been designed to simplify the buying process. We had looked to Fiverr for inspiration, and our app helped sellers to productize their services because we assumed that this would make it easier for buyers. But we made a critical mistake. While what worked great at Fiverr, we learned that women weren't looking for a transactional hiring experience. Yes, they desperately wanted more customers themselves, but they wanted to get to know each other before hiring. In short, they wanted community, which led to our next big pivot. Vendev, the skills marketplace, would become Vendev, a business network for women. And unlike other business networks, we would help women to get more customers by rewarding them for what they did best, helping each other and sharing their expertise. It was 2015 by this point, and many women entrepreneurs were using Facebook groups to find new customers, but we believed we had a better solution. From a business perspective, we were off to the right track. We did lots of customer interviews, and based on what we learned, we developed a hypothesis, and then we used Facebook groups and a WordPress to build a very early prototype. Next, we were accepted into a 3-month accelerator program in Las Vegas. Unlike Nova Scotia, where there's a huge shortage of venture capital, Las Vegas had the most VC-funded female founders in North America. And if we were going to build a business network that could compete with LinkedIn, we were going to need VC funding. So off I went. I packed my bags for Vegas and we started planning our new app. This time, we'd rebuild our app using open source solutions, allowing us to get a new app in market in just 3 months. But the few months that followed after the decision to pivot were also the hardest in my life. We'd raised money from investors for the first version of the product, and I felt like I'd let them down. I fell into a pretty deep depression, and my anxiety was at an all-time high. And it was made even harder by the fact that our funding was running out. We needed to launch our new product and raise more investor money. Otherwise, the company would die. But before I continue with the story and dive into the importance of experimentation in product design, let's recap what we've learned about customer development. So customer development is a process of routinely talking to your customers or potential customers so you can build products that they want faster. To do this right, you need to start by identifying your ideal customer and conducting customer interviews using a proven step-by-step system that will help you to ask the right questions or disprove your hypothesis. And you should not wait until you've designed your product to start getting feedback. It's not enough to interview customers in the beginning like we did with Swapskis. You should be routinely talking to your customers throughout the whole design process. This will save you a lot of wasted time and money and a lot of sleepless nights. Okay, so next, let's talk about experimentation and why it's so important. So if you were to ask any early stage tech founder what they want for Christmas, 9 out of 10 of them are going to say that they want product market fit. Product market fit means that your market wants the product you're selling. Every entrepreneur's job is to get to product market fit before their money runs out. And the best way to get there is to run ongoing experiments and rapidly iterate your product and marketing efforts. The most famous example of this in tech history has got to be Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg and his team are amazing at this. There's a reason why you're addicted to Facebook, and that's because Facebook uses scientific, data-driven approaches to growth. At any given time, Facebook is running hundreds or even thousands of experiments. So how do you manage that many experiments? Well, you can put them in a handy-dandy spreadsheet like the one that we've created for you and that you're going to get as a special bonus at the end. But here's the important thing that you need to know. All of these experiments across every department of the company are all working towards one unified growth goal. That means that everything the development team is working on, everything the marketing team is working on, everything the customer service team is working on, each project relates back to one unified growth goal. Facebook takes this so seriously that they even broadcast that goal on every TV in their office. They want to be sure that every single team member is working towards the same objective. This unwavering focus on one single growth objective is the reason why Facebook is worth $245 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. And for 8 years, Facebook ignored revenue entirely and focused only on growth. Every experiment they ran related back to one number. How many users did they have? In tech, we call this the one metric that matters. It's the one single number that acts as a pulse for how your company is performing. And it can be different for every company, and it will change over time. For Facebook, growth meant getting new users in the network, getting them hooked, and then getting them to invite their friends. It was all about virality. How fast could they grow? It wasn't about how fast they could grow, but Facebook knew that you needed to also be addicted to their product for them to keep growing. And that's why they were constantly running experiments to make that happen. Would the page layout make people stay on the page longer? How many people wanted to share photos? Would sharing photos make them invite their friends? And would adding new profile options encourage people to invite their friends? Facebook was meticulous in measuring and testing everything. Nothing was left to chance. Every new feature, every small change, everything was about figuring out how to keep growing. And Facebook was able to think about only growth because they had a lot of investor backing. In total, Facebook has raised over $300 million from investors. That's a lot of money to pump into growth, right? But meanwhile, over at Vendeeb, we weren't quite so lucky on the investment front. We'd launched our new app, and the early traction was really exciting. Our users loved it, our team was excited, and even the media was excited. I think one of my favorite all-time moments in business was when I read this quote in Forbes. Forbes said, Vendeeb takes the best features from Facebook, LinkedIn, and Yelp and refines them for a very specific purpose, to connect women entrepreneurs. Forbes magazine was comparing us to giants like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Yelp. How could we go wrong, right? Well, there was just one problem. We were not growing as quickly as those companies had grown. And we certainly didn't have the same amount of money from investors. Our small team was ping-ponging between growing the network, managing our community, and traveling all over the place to meet with potential investors. What happened in the next 4 months can only be described as a roller coaster. The highs were extremely high and the lows were devastating. I'll talk more about the lows in the next section, but long story short, we didn't have product market fit. We had thousands of active users, but we needed tens of thousands of active users. And with our small team, we were burning out. The answer was clear. For Vendeeb to succeed as a business network and forego revenue and focus only on growth like LinkedIn and Facebook had, we needed more investment. But the investment market had changed a lot in the last 2 years since we launched Swapskis. It was becoming harder and harder for tech companies to find investors. But we thought we could weather the storm. We'd been talking to a big investor for a few months, and we were confident that he was going to invest and help us close our round so that we could go heads down and finally focus on growing the network. But he didn't invest. He backed out at the last minute, and it did change everything. Suddenly, we were weeks away from running out of money. We needed to switch gears. We couldn't just think about user growth anymore. We needed to build a product that our customers would pay to use today. Our number one growth goal, or the one metric that mattered, became monthly recurring revenue. And we needed to build a product that our members would pay to use month after month. We knew that we needed to build a product like that. It had to be awesome. So we started back at square one. But this time, we built our product the right way from the start. We'd start lean, do lots of customer development, and experiment as we go to get to product market fit. First, I interviewed more Vendeeb members. We learned that while our members loved Vendeeb, which we already knew, they didn't love it so much they were willing to pay a monthly membership for it as it was, because they could still use Facebook and LinkedIn for free. That being said, there was one thing that they kept asking for. We consistently heard that they wanted even more ways to connect with other women who understood their journey. They wanted more than a forum or a Facebook group. They wanted deeper, more meaningful connections. So with that, I formed our first hypothesis, which I'll tell you more about in the last section, and we began our experiments. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the details about all of the product iterations because there were a lot over a five-month period, but I will tell you about some of the experiments that we ran. So we emailed all of our survey respondents with a more detailed survey. Based on their feedback and our research, we brainstormed what an MVP might look like. We didn't actually build anything, but we had an idea of how it would work. Next, I posted a question in the Vendeeb forum asking members if they would like to sign up for a 3-week pilot, and we accepted 12 members. Once we knew that people were actually interested in the idea, we created our MVP. We didn't code anything or do any fancy design work. The MVP USP would be delivered using email, PDFs, and third-party software. The free pilot went well, and we learned so much. We learned that certain features of our product were working perfectly, which I'll tell you more about shortly, but other ones weren't working. So we did more interviews. And after getting more validation, we reworked our hypothesis again and planned our next pilot. Now it was time for the big test. Would people pay for our product? Rather than planning a huge launch for a product that nobody might want, I created a simple video pitching the idea. I sent the video to a handful of Vendeed members, and voila. We had people write back saying that they wanted to sign up. And then I created a quick and dirty sales page using lead pages so that they could buy. Next, we shared the video with more members, inviting people who we thought could be a great fit for the paid pilot. And when 20% of the people that we invited to join bought, we knew we were onto something. We launched the paid pilot, and again, we kept it simple. No coding, but we did do a little web design this time and a few more third-party apps which we strung together using Zapier to help automate the process. The paid pilot ran for 2 months and we learned so much. We surveyed our members throughout the process and we interviewed many members, and every call and every bit of feedback that we collected helped us to refine our product even more. We were finally ready for our public launch. But starting lean and doing customer development and running lots and lots of experiments, we had built a product that we were insanely proud of, a product that our early adopters were raving about. And even though the product has changed dramatically in the last 4 months, and we had a lot of technical hiccups at the beginning, we've managed to retain 65% of our original customers. That means that they returned and they bought again, which is one of the best signals that what we're doing is working. One of our pilot members loves it so much that she's actually offered to pay for another struggling entrepreneur to join. She's going to dig into her own pocket because she believes that it will propel their business and she doesn't want anybody to miss out. Now that's big. And that product, as many of you already know, is Squads, a mastermind community for women entrepreneurs. I'm excited to tell you more about Squads because it's the answer to the #1 reason businesses fail that nobody is talking about. And that brings me to the last section. But first, let's recap what we learned about experimentation. So we talked about how using ongoing experimentation and using one growth goal at a time will help you to build products people love and will pay for over and over again. To do this right, you can start by choosing an overall growth goal and being fiercely committed to it. This is your one metric that mattered. For Facebook and for many other tech companies, it was user growth. For us, it had become monthly recurring revenue. For you, it might be monthly website traffic, or if you're in e-commerce, maybe it's the average order amount, or maybe if you're in the restaurant business, it's your food cost. Find the metric that matters, measure it fiercely, and then design experiments to help you improve incrementally over time. And of course, you want to measure your progress week by week, month by month. Look for signals that you are on the right track. And if something isn't moving the needle in your business, move on. And the things you shouldn't do. Don't overcomplicate it. Start small by running 1 or maybe 2 experiments a week, and then increase your experimentation over time. You also want to pick one growth goal that you can easily measure. Don't pick something you can't measure. For instance, customer satisfaction is harder to measure than return customers. And you also want to avoid measuring what we call vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are things like Facebook likes or Instagram followers. Yes, increasing your following can help you to grow your business, but it's better to focus on performance indicators like sales or return customers than soft metrics like followers or podcast listeners. Don't worry, we put together a spreadsheet to help you track your experiments and measure your progress, but you're going to need to stick around to the end so that you can get the URL for the download. Okay, so let's dive into the last section, the one I'm most excited and actually most scared of sharing. So let's talk about the #1 reason that entrepreneurs fail and how you can avoid it. Now, I don't believe that entrepreneurs fail because they have bad ideas. They can have bad ideas, products that aren't actually in demand or business models that aren't viable, but that's how products and business models fail, not the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs fail because they burn out. They fail because they keep getting punched over and over and over again. And eventually they decide that this time they don't want to get back up. Todd Herman says people don't quit their job because it's hard. They quit their job because they thought it was going to be easy. And that's the hard truth. Today, entrepreneurship is glorified. Everybody wants to be their own boss. And if you're considering quitting your 9 to 5 and starting your own business, there are thousands of gurus, experts, and strategists who are eager to help you. For a fee, of course. There are literally millions of online courses, books, blogs, worksheets, and webinars that will teach you how to build a better business. Hell, that's why you're watching this webinar, right? But when things get really tough, you don't need to consume more content. You need to talk it out. You just need somebody that will listen, and I get that. I came up with the idea for Squads because I desperately needed it myself. When Swapskis failed, I felt it for months afterwards. I fell into a deep depression. I'd never experienced anything like that before. I would cry myself to sleep almost nightly. I was so stressed out that I'd wake up in the middle of the night and throw up. And even though I had an amazing team and a husband who believes in me, I couldn't talk to them about it. They didn't understand the pressure I was under, and it wasn't their burden to bear. So many people had supported and believed in me, and I needed to hold it together. I didn't have time for a breakdown, so I kept going, and it was insanely lonely. And that's the real reason that businesses fail. The founders give up. They get tired of fighting. They get tired of doing it alone. And that's why I created Squads. Women are starting businesses at the fastest rate in history, but women are also burning out at the fastest rate in history. We're trying to live up to these insanely high standards set by people who don't always tell their whole story. And because of that, we feel like we're constantly failing, constantly not good enough, constantly disappointing the people that we love, the people who believe in us. How sad is that? Most hardworking women are closing their businesses because they can't handle doing it alone anymore. They can't handle the stress that it's putting on them and their loved ones. And I've been there. I had a huge vision when I started Swapskis. And when we launched Vendive, the vision had grown even bigger. I believed that I could help women solve the #1 problem they had in their business, getting more customers. But in the last year, I've learned that I was dead wrong. There will be 1 billion women entrepreneurs by 2020. 80% of them are solo founders, and they're building their businesses from their homes. And their biggest problem, it isn't getting more customers. There are hundreds of apps, books, tools, and experts who want to help you get more customers. The biggest problem women have is the loneliness, the uncertainty, and the frustration that comes from trying to do all the things all alone. And that's why I created Squads. Squads isn't a magic pill. There are no magic pills. And if you want an easy 10-step plan for making 6 figures, there are lots of people that are hungry to sell that to you. And I'm not one of them. And Squads isn't about consuming content. It's not about training videos, worksheets, and webinars. It's about connecting you with other women entrepreneurs who get you. It's about getting outside of your own head and talking it out with people who take the time to get to know you and your business. It's about building a support system and surrounding yourself with people that are here to help. Not because you're paying them to help, and not because they want to sell something to you, but because you've built a genuine relationship with them. Squads is about getting personalized feedback, support, and accountability that you need to succeed. And every woman entrepreneur deserves that. I want every woman entrepreneur to find her squad, and so we price Squads to make it inclusive. At $49 a month, it costs less than you'd spend for a 15-minute therapy session. This isn't some high-priced mastermind where you have to buy your way into the Cool Girls Club. This is an inclusive community where we care more about who you are as a person than how big your email list is or how much money you're making. Now, we're only accepting new members until tomorrow, and then we're not accepting any new members until the new year. And that's not some bullshit scarcity tactic. For our team, Squads isn't a passive product. The truth is that it takes all of our time and energy to manage the Squads experience. So we're closing down sales so that we can focus on making Squads the absolute best experience for you. And the truth is, we're not going to get rich off this launch. We might not even break even. But I know that Squads works. And I know that if I can show you that it works, that we will continue to grow and grow. My vision is soon that every woman entrepreneur will have her own squad. So if you've been trying to decide whether or not you should join, I want to make it a no-brainer. For members who join in the next hour, we're going to offer you special pricing. You can save up to 40% off of your membership versus the regular price. And in addition to saving money, you'll also receive a special gift for joining in the next hour. We'll gift you with our daily planning bonus pack. This is one of the biggest complaints that I hear from entrepreneurs is that they don't have enough time. And we've developed amazing systems over the years that help us maximize our productivity. This bonus is going to walk you through our daily planning system, which I've developed over years. It's going to be step-by-step, and it includes a done-for-you planning template that you can use with our favorite project management tool, Favro. I'm actually pretty obsessed with project planning, and after trying Asana, Basecamp, Trello, Wrike, Favro is the only tool I recommend because it's the only tool that helps you to see your most important growth goal, easily run experiments, and get the most out of your day. So to recap, you'll get the discounted membership, up to 40% off, and the daily planning bonus pack if you join Squads in the next hour. To sign up, go to squads.vip. You're going to have to apply first to be accepted. With Squads, we have to make sure it's the right fit for you before we bring you in. When you do, you'll be redirected to a page where you can access the bonus pricing. Okay, so we're going to jump onto the Q&A now, but before I do, I also promised you a free Fail Fast workbook. So claiming your workbook is easy. We didn't have time to set up an opt-in funnel for this, so simply comment with your email address below and we'll send you your copy of the workbook tomorrow. Okay, so let's chat. Okay, so I'm excited to answer any questions that anybody has. I'm just going to open up the other window. That was my first webinar. Was it okay? Like, let me see if I can see comments. Okay. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have. There's a little bit of a delay, so I'll get to the questions as you ask them. And in the interim, what do you guys think? Was it, for my first webinar, did I do all right? Oh, I see that some of our pilot members are already in watching the webinar. Hi, ladies. Thank you so much. It's amazing to see you there and to be giving your support. Both Mena Riley and Jess Dury are here, and they're both from our original pilot. And, you know, they are the reason why we're doing this. They made us realize that it's working, and I'm so excited that we get to build this community for them. So thank you, ladies. Thank you. So I'm just reloading the page, seeing if there are any questions. Oh, thank you, Jess. Jess says that I rocked it. Thank you. Oh, awesome, Suzanne. So yes, Sarah's going to send you the workbook. Oh, thank you, Stacy. Thank you for saying great job. It was nerve-wracking. You can see that I had like a anxiety rash. It was crazy. It's like sharing the whole story of how we got to where we are now. That's scary stuff. It's reliving a lot of stuff. Okay, seeing if there's any other. Oh, my husband, he's on the thread. He said I was the best. Thank you, honey. I love you so much. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. You have to be honest about the failures because that's how we learn. And there's a lot of people that will tell you that, you know, they've got a 10-step plan and, you know, that they went from 0 to 100 in 6 months, but dig in, find out more. There's usually a deeper story there. And I think it's important to look for that story. And I think that more people should share that story because it would make us, I think it would make everybody feel better if we didn't constantly feel like we're underperforming. And I think that that's a real problem in the online space is that people set these expectations that are crazy and then everybody feels that they're failing. Seeing if there's any other questions. If there's no other questions, that'll be it for tonight. I kept it in under an hour. And this was fun. So I think that we're going to have a replay for anybody who may have came on in the middle or at the end. I think we're going to have a replay. I need to double check. We're down to the wire and getting this set up, and I'm not sure that we figured out how to do the replay, but we will find out. And if we do have a replay, we're going to send it tomorrow. Oh, Jess, we'll send you a copy of the workbook for sure. Oh, good. So I'm excited to hear more about Jess's business focus change. Jess is like an incredibly talented entrepreneur. She's an amazing copywriter, but she's also just such a good teacher and really good at sharing her knowledge with people. And so she's in the thread here. You should check out her website. Hey, Kaylee. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad it was good timing. We'll definitely send you the workbook. We'll send you the workbook, Tracy. Hey, Linda. Oh, Linda, I know what it's like when you're in burnout. Don't worry about joining now. Join in the future. When you're burned out, you sometimes just need to take a break. We're going to be launching in the new year and accepting new members then. If you don't join now, you can join in the new year. But you should join now because if not you, Linda, you should take a break. But anybody else who's considering it, you know, if you're not burned out, if you're ready to grow your business, if you're looking for the support, this is why we've created this system. It's for you guys. And so, okay, I think that if there's no, oh, we're going to send more people asking for a copy of the webinar, more people saying it was inspiring. Thanks. You guys inspire me every single day. I'm just really, like, I feel very grateful that I've got to connect with all of you and build something that's making a difference in your lives. So thank you. Oh, thank you, Mena. Mena says that it's, yeah. Okay, well, if nobody has any questions about squads, any questions about my journey, I'll give it a couple more minutes, but then I'll be available to comment on things that are posted in this thread. So I'll jump off and comment as well. And this was fun. This was scary, but it was fun. You guys should all try this. It takes more time than you expect. I had planned for this webinar to take me a day and a half to create all of the content, create the slideshow, set up all of our opt-in pages, and set up the live stream. It took a lot longer than that. It took, basically I've worked 16 hours a day for the last 4 days. So if you're planning your first webinar, give yourself time. That's my advice. Okay, I think that I'm just checking again. There's a bit of a lag, but yay! Kaylee, we're so excited to have you too. Okay, ladies, we'll go to the rest. It's 9 o'clock. Go enjoy your Thursday night, and we're available for any questions that you have. You can email me, yeah. So sign up. The bonus expires in an hour. So if you know anybody that's on the fence, if you yourself have already joined, but you know somebody who's on the fence that wants to get in, tell them to join in the next hour so that they can get the fast acting bonus and the discount. Okay, I'm just gonna double check one more time, make sure there's no more questions. That's a great hashtag idea, Mena. Sure, she said that the hashtag should be move your needle because that's what Squads does. That's an awesome thing to end on. Okay, ladies, have an awesome night. I'm just going to leave the stream up with a link to the Squads page in case anybody needs the URL and a mention of what the bonuses are. Okay, have a great night.